This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi say good morning. I want to share with you what we've been doing, a moment of gratitude. I'm reading to you from a beautiful sefer. It's called Adoin HaNeflois by Rabbi Yitzchak Zalman Gips, who wrote a lesson a day of various things that a person can be and should be grateful for, that we benefit from on a daily basis and at every moment of the day. So let's talk about the brain. We've been speaking about the brain, and we mentioned last week that the brain has 86 billion neurons. By the way, that's a lot, which means there are more connections in the human brain than telephone connections on the entire planet Earth. Even in the biggest shaita's brain, there are more connections in the brain than telephone wire. Now, let me ask you a question. Is there a makom in this world that somewhere Con Ed is not trying to fix the telephone wires? No. I'm sure there are dozens, if not hundreds of places that they're actually working on trying to fix the electrical wires or the telephone wires and so on and so forth. And yet, most of the time, we wake up and we don't have a headache. You know what kind of miracle it is not to have a headache? It means if one of the 86 billion neurons are not connecting properly, a person would have an excruciating headache. In fact, Chazal tell us that if a person goes 40 days without a headache, they lose their olam haba. How? It's such a hana not to have a headache that if you don't have a headache for 40 days, you could lose your olam haba, or at least part of it, unless you thank Hashem for the miracle of waking up in the morning without an excruciating headache. That means the Rebbe Shalom is actively ensuring that all 86 billion connections are functioning properly. So let's mention how many parts are of the brain. There are 5 main parts: cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem, pituitary, and hypothalamus. Now, what percent of the brain is the cerebrum? Cerebrum is 85% of the brain. It controls speech, memory, learning, sensory processing, voluntary movement. Cerebellum is smaller, and it handles a little bit of the motor learning and calculation. Then you have the brainstem. It controls involuntary activities, circulation, breathing, digestion. What percent of the human body weight is the cerebrum? Of a significant percent. It's actually 2% of the total body weight is the cerebrum. Which is an incredible concept that in the head, there's a small part in the head that actually takes up 2% of a person's body weight, and yet a person is able to balance their neck without feeling the weight and the heaviness of their head. So these are all things we have to be cognizant of and be grateful to the Ribbon Shalom. But, by the way, tell you something interesting, that of these 86 billion neurons, there are thousands and thousands of brain cells. At the age of 40, on a daily basis, 4,000 to 50,000 brain cells die on a daily basis. Now, don't worry, that's not really a lot relative to the total amount. But even so, even though the brain does deteriorate once a person reaches 40 years old, nevertheless, it is possible for a person to continue to develop their brain until almost the very end of one's life. In other words, even with limited number of brain cells, a person is able to improve the functioning of the brain. Even at age 40, 50, 60, 70, they're able to learn new things and improve the functioning. So, hopefully, we know that whether we use it or not, Hashem gave us one, and we should be able to use it, especially for thanking Hashem. Have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.